The morning sun on Kepler 442b cast long shadows across the endless metal graveyard. Captain Hyun-woo Kim pulled his jacket tighter as the cold wind whistled through twisted pieces of ancient starships. The scrapyard stretched for miles in every direction, filled with the remains of battles fought long before humans ever left Earth. "Another day, another pile of junk," muttered So-min Park, kicking at a piece of corroded hull plating. She was the best engineer on the outer rim, but even she got tired of sorting through garbage for the few pieces worth selling. Dong-ho Lee was already ahead of them, his scanner beeping as he searched for anything valuable. "Hey, boss, I'm getting some weird readings over here," he called out. His voice echoed off the metal mountains around them. Hyun-woo had been running salvage operations for 15 years. He knew the difference between worthless scrap and hidden treasure. But this place was different. The local miners called it cursed. They said ships that came here never left the same. Most humans just laughed at alien superstitions, but Hyun-woo had learned to listen when the universe tried to warn him. "What kind of readings?" Hyun-woo asked, following Dong-ho's voice through a maze of broken ship parts. The scanner's beeping got faster as they walked deeper into the graveyard. "I don't know. It's not showing up in any of our databases. The energy signature is really faint, but it's there." Dong-ho stopped in front of what looked like a small hill covered in rust and strange purple vines. So-min caught up with them, breathing hard. "Are you sure that's not just background radiation? This place has been collecting space junk for thousands of years. There's bound to be some leftover energy signatures from old reactors." But Hyun-woo was already studying the shape more carefully. What looked like a hill was actually curved like a ship's hull. The rust was thick, but underneath he could see smooth metal in a design he had never seen before. The purple vines weren't really vines at all. They looked more like cables or maybe some kind of organic tubing. "This isn't junk," he said quietly. "This is a ship." Dong-ho's scanner went crazy when he pointed it directly at the hull. "Boss, this thing is huge. I'm reading at least 300 meters in length, maybe more, and there's definitely something alive in there. The power readings are really weak, but they're consistent." So-min shook her head. "Come on, Hyun-woo, even if it is a ship. Look at the state of it. That rust must be centuries old. And what are those purple things growing all over it? I've never seen anything like that before." "That's exactly why we're taking it," Hyun-woo said, walking around the massive hull. The design was completely alien, but it felt familiar somehow, like looking at a word in a foreign language that you almost understood. "I've been doing this job long enough to know when something special crosses my path." "The locals say this graveyard is haunted," Dong-ho said nervously. "They say ships that disturb the old wrecks end up disappearing." "The locals also say that drinking fermented algae will make you live forever," So-min replied. "Just because they've been in space longer than us doesn't mean they know everything." Hyun-woo found what looked like an airlock, though it was sealed shut and covered in the same organic growth as the rest of the ship. "Help me clear this area. I want to see what we're dealing with." They worked for 2 hours, cutting away the purple cables and scraping off layers of rust. The metal underneath was dark and smooth, almost black. It felt warm to the touch, which was strange because everything else in the graveyard was ice cold. "I'm not getting any response from standard docking protocols," Dong-Ho said, trying to connect his portable terminal to the ship's systems. "Whatever this thing is, it doesn't use any technology I recognize." "Maybe that's because it's older than anything in our databases," Hyun-Woo suggested. He had heard stories from other salvage crews about finding ships from extinct races. Most of them were just stories, but sometimes you got lucky. So-Min had managed to expose what looked like a control panel next to the airlock. The symbols on it were completely foreign, but when she touched the surface, it lit up with a soft blue glow. "Okay, that's definitely not normal." "Did you do something?" Hyun-Woo asked. "I just touched it. Maybe it responds to contact?" She pressed her palm against the largest symbol. The airlock made a deep humming sound and began to open. "Well, that's either really good or really bad," Dong-Ho said, taking a step back. The airlock opened completely, revealing a corridor that stretched into darkness. The air that came out was stale but breathable. Emergency lighting flickered on automatically, showing walls that looked more grown than built. Everything had the same organic feel as the exterior cables. "I'm reading atmosphere," Dong-Ho reported. "Oxygen, nitrogen, and some trace gases I don't recognize. But it's safe to breathe." Hyun-Woo stepped into the airlock. The floor felt solid under his feet, but it gave slightly, like walking on thick carpet. "Come on, let's see what we found." "This is a bad idea," So-Min said, but she followed him anyway. "We don't know anything about this ship or who built it. For all we know, we could be walking into a trap." "Everything good in life starts with a bad idea," Hyun-Woo replied, moving deeper into the ship. The corridors were wide enough for 3 people to walk side by side, and the ceiling was high enough that he didn't have to worry about hitting his head. Whoever built this ship was roughly human-sized, which was encouraging. The emergency lighting followed them as they walked, turning on sections ahead and dimming sections behind. The ship was definitely still alive, at least partially. That explained the power readings Dong-Ho had detected. "Boss, look at this," Dong-Ho called out from a side corridor. He was standing in front of what looked like a viewing port, but instead of showing the outside, it displayed scrolling text in the same alien language they had seen on the airlock controls. "Can you make any sense of it?" Hyun-Woo asked. "Not the language, but the patterns look like system diagnostics. If I had to guess, I'd say the ship is running some kind of self-check." Dong-Ho touched the surface of the display, and the text changed to different symbols. "It's responding to input, but I have no idea what I'm telling it to do." So-Min had found another console further down the corridor. "The same thing is happening over here. It's like the ship is trying to communicate with us, but we don't speak the same language." They spent another hour exploring the upper levels of the ship. Every room they entered showed signs of advanced technology, but it was all dormant or running at minimal power. The design was unlike anything in the galactic databases. It wasn't the clean, geometric style of most spacefaring races. This ship looked like it had been grown rather than built. "We need to get back to the station," Hyun-Woo finally said. "We're going to need a lot more equipment if we want to understand what we found here." Are we really doing this? So Min asked. Are we really claiming salvage rights on a ship we can't even identify? That's exactly what we're doing, Hyunwoo replied. File the paperwork with the station authority. As of today, this ship belongs to us. As they walked back toward the airlock, the ship's lighting dimmed behind them as if it were going back to sleep. But Hyunwoo could swear he felt something watching them leave. Something that had been waiting a very long time for someone to find it. New Busan Station buzzed with activity as Hyunwoo's crew returned from the scrapyard. The massive space station orbited Kepler 442b like a steel moon, its docking bays constantly filled with mining ships and cargo haulers. But today everyone was talking about the strange ship the human salvage team had claimed. You found what exactly? Ji-Hae Choi asked, looking up from her workbench. She was the station's chief technician, and if anyone could make sense of unknown technology, it was her. Tools and spare parts covered every surface of her workshop, organized in a way that only made sense to her. A ship unlike anything in the databases, Hyunwoo replied, handing her the datapad with their initial scans. 300 meters long, partially organic design, and it responds to human touch. Ji-Hae scrolled through the readings, her eyebrows rising higher with each page. These energy signatures don't match any known propulsion system. And what's this about organic components? Ships don't grow, Hyunwoo. They're built. That's what I thought too, So-Min said, setting down a sample of the purple cable material they had cut from the ship's hull. But look at this under a microscope. It has cellular structure, but it's also conducting electricity. Before Ji-Hae could examine the sample, the workshop door slid open. A young man in a crisp military uniform walked in, his posture straight and confident. He looked like he had just graduated from one of Earth's naval academies. "Excuse me," the newcomer said. "I'm looking for Captain Kim. I heard you found something interesting in the old graveyard." Hyunwoo sized up the young officer. "Depends. Who's asking?" "Lieutenant Taemin Seo, Earth Defense Force. I was assigned to this sector to study alien technology." He looked around the workshop with obvious interest. "I specialize in weapons systems and ship design." "Great. Another military expert who thinks he knows everything," So-Min muttered under her breath. Taemin either didn't hear her or chose to ignore the comment. "May I see your scans? I've studied ships from dozens of extinct civilizations. Maybe I can help identify what you found." Hyunwoo handed him the data pad. The young officer's casual confidence disappeared as he read through the information. His face went pale, and his hands started shaking slightly. "This can't be right," Taemin said quietly. "These weapon hardpoints. I've seen this design before, but only in theoretical studies." "What are you talking about?" Ji-Hae asked, taking the data pad from him. "The configuration of these mounting points, the power distribution patterns. This looks like Vorthok design." Taemin sat down heavily on a nearby stool. "But that's impossible. The Vorthak disappeared 50,000 years ago." "Who are the Vorthak?" Dong-Ho asked. "Were," Taemin corrected. "They were a warrior race that dominated this part of the galaxy before humans even discovered fire. According to the historical records, They built the most advanced warships ever seen, but they vanished completely. No one knows what happened to them. Ji-Hai was studying So-Min's cable sample under a high-powered microscope. Well, if this is Vorthak technology, it's still partially alive. The cellular structure is dormant, but it's definitely organic. It's like the ship is sleeping. We need to go back, Hyunwoo decided. If this really is a Vorthak ship, we need to understand what we're dealing with before anyone else finds out about it. I'm coming with you, Taemin said immediately. I've spent years studying ancient weapon systems. If you're going to explore that ship, you'll need someone who understands what you might find. So-Min looked skeptical. No offense, but what can a fresh academy graduate tell us about a 50,000-year-old alien ship? More than you might think, Taemin replied. The Vorthak didn't just build ships. They built living weapons. Their technology was designed to bond with its users, to become part of them. That's why their ships disappeared when they did. Without the Vorthak to maintain the bond, the ships died. But our ship isn't dead, Dong-Ho pointed out. It responded to us. The lights came on, the displays activated. Exactly, Taemin said, his excitement growing. Don't you see? If the ship is responding to human contact, it means we might be compatible with Vorthak technology. No other known species has ever successfully operated their ships. Ji-Hai looked up from her microscope. That would explain why the ship has been sitting in that graveyard for so long. Other species probably tried to claim it over the years, but it wouldn't respond to them. Only humans, Hyunwoo said thoughtfully. But why us? I don't know, Taemin admitted. But I think we need to find out. This could change everything we know about human capabilities. The next morning, they returned to the scrapyard with a ship full of equipment. Ji-Hai had packed every scanner and diagnostic tool she could fit into their cargo hold. Taemin brought military-grade analysis equipment and a portable power generator. The alien ship looked exactly the same as they had left it, but something felt different. The purple cables seemed more active, pulsing with a faint light. The hull itself felt warmer to the touch. It knows we're here, So-Min said quietly. I can't explain how, but I think it recognizes us. They entered through the same airlock as before, but this time the ship's response was stronger. More lights came on, and they could hear a low humming sound from deeper in the vessel. It sounded almost like breathing. The power levels are definitely higher than yesterday, Dong-Ho reported, checking his readings. It's like the ship is waking up. They made their way to what looked like the ship's control center. The room was larger than any bridge Hyunwoo had ever seen, with curved walls, covered in displays and control surfaces. Everything was dark when they entered, but as soon as So-Min touched the nearest console, the entire room came to life. Displays flickered on all around them, showing star charts, system diagnostics, and scrolling text in the alien language. The central command chair rose from the floor, perfectly sized for a human occupant. This is incredible, Taemin breathed, studying the weapon control stations. These systems are more advanced than anything in the current galactic fleet. If we could understand how they work, try touching one of the interfaces, Ji-Hai suggested. See if it responds to you the same way it did to So-Min. Taemin approached a console that was clearly designed for weapons control. The moment his fingers made contact with the surface, the display changed to show targeting systems and firing solutions. The text was still in the alien language, but the symbols and diagrams were universal enough that he could understand the basic functions. "It's learning from us," he said in amazement. "The interface is adapting to human methods of operation." Somin had found what looked like an engineering station. When she touched it, detailed schematics of the ship's systems appeared on the screen. "Look at this. It's showing me how everything works. The power systems, the life support, even the structural integrity monitors." Dong-ho was at what had to be the pilot station. "Same here. I can see navigation controls, propulsion systems, and something that might be faster than light drive. But the really strange part is that I understand it. I don't know how, but I know what these controls do." Hyun-woo sat in the command chair and immediately felt a strange tingling sensation in his mind. Suddenly, he could sense the entire ship around him. He knew that the port plasma conduit needed maintenance, that the forward sensors were operating at 60% efficiency, and that the ship's name was Kethvar. "The ship is talking to me," he said quietly. "Not in words, but I can feel what it needs. It's been waiting for someone who could understand it." "Waiting for humans," Taemin said. "But why? What makes us special?" Before anyone could answer, alarms started sounding throughout the ship. The displays changed to show an approaching vessel, and Hyun-woo somehow knew it was bad news. "We have visitors," he announced, "and they're not here to welcome us to the neighborhood." The approaching ship appeared on the Kethvar's main screen like a gleaming silver needle against the black of space. It was sleek and elegant, nothing like the organic curves of the ancient vessel they were exploring. Hyun-woo could feel the alien ship systems analyzing the newcomer, and somehow he knew it was not friendly. "That's a Hegemony Council patrol ship," Taemin said, recognizing the design immediately. "They must have detected our activity here." "What do they want?" Somin asked, though she already suspected the answer. "Probably to take our ship away from us," Dong-ho replied grimly. "The Council doesn't like it when humans find advanced technology." Ji Haye was monitoring the communication channels. "They're hailing us. Standard diplomatic frequency." "Put them through," Hyun-woo said. He remained seated in the command chair, feeling more connected to the ship with each passing moment. The Kethvar seemed to be learning from his thoughts, understanding his intentions before he fully formed them. The main screen switched to show a tall, crystalline being with multiple arms and eyes that glowed like blue stars. Its voice was translated by the universal communicator, but the tone was cold and formal. "This is Representative Veltar of the Hegemony Council. You are in violation of Sector 7 salvage regulations. The vessel you have claimed contains dangerous technology that poses a threat to galactic security." "Dangerous to who?" Hyun-woo asked. "We've been exploring this ship for 2 days, and it hasn't threatened anyone." "That is irrelevant," Veltar replied. "Vorthak technology is classified as extremely hazardous. By order of the Council, you will surrender the vessel immediately for safe disposal." "Safe disposal," Somin muttered. "They want to destroy it." Taemin stepped forward. Representative Veltar, with respect, this ship was found in neutral space and properly claimed according to salvage law. The Council has no authority here. The crystalline being's eyes flared brighter. Lieutenant Seo, your military record indicates you are trained in alien technology assessment. Surely you understand the danger of allowing primitive species access to Vorthak weapon systems. Primitive species? Dong-ho said angrily. Who are they calling primitive? Hyun-woo felt something stirred deep within the ship's consciousness. The Kethvar did not like being threatened, and it especially did not like its new crew being insulted. Power levels throughout the vessel began to rise automatically. The ship is responding to our emotions, Ji-hee whispered, watching her instruments with amazement. It's like it's getting angry along with us. Representative Veltar, Hyun-woo said, standing up from the command chair. We appreciate your concern, but we decline your generous offer. This ship is now legally registered to the human salvage vessel New Hope. If you have a problem with that, take it up with the trade courts. The hegemony representative's crystalline features somehow managed to convey displeasure. You have 24 hours to reconsider. After that, we will take action to secure the vessel by force. The communication ended, leaving the human crew alone with their thoughts and a very awake alien warship. The Kethvar systems were now running at nearly full power, and every display showed weapon systems coming online. Well, that went better than expected, So-min said sarcastically. Actually, it went exactly as expected, Tae-min replied. The Council has been looking for an excuse to limit human expansion for years. They're not going to let us keep a ship this advanced. Hyun-woo sat back down in the command chair and immediately felt the ship's readiness for combat. It was eager to defend itself and its crew. The feeling was both exhilarating and terrifying. The ship wants to fight, he said quietly. I can feel it. It's been dormant for so long, and now it's awake and ready for battle. Can we trust it? Ji-hee asked. We don't really know anything about Vorthak psychology. What if their idea of protecting us involves destroying half the sector? I don't think so, Hyun-woo replied. The ship isn't just responding to us, it's learning from us. It understands that we want to protect innocent people, not harm them. Over the next 20 hours, they worked frantically to understand the Kethvar systems. The ship was incredibly patient with their fumbling attempts to interface with its controls. It would slow down processes when they got confused, repeat information when they needed clarification, and even adjust its responses based on each person's learning style. So-min discovered that the engineering systems could be controlled almost entirely through thought. She would visualize what she wanted the ship to do, and the biomechanical components would respond accordingly. It was like having a conversation with the ship itself. Dong-ho found that the navigation system worked similarly. He could think about where he wanted to go, and the ship would plot the most efficient course automatically. But more than that, it would also suggest alternative routes based on tactical considerations he hadn't even thought of. Tae-min was amazed by the weapons systems. They were more advanced than anything in the current galactic fleet, but they were also remarkably precise. The ship could target specific systems on enemy vessels without causing unnecessary casualties. It was designed to disable rather than destroy. "This changes everything we thought we knew about the Vorthak," he said, studying the tactical displays. "History describes them as a race of conquerors, but these weapons are designed for surgical strikes, not mass destruction." HFY had been analyzing the ship's memory banks, trying to piece together its history. "I think I found something important. The ship is showing me fragments of its past. The Vorthak weren't just warriors, they were protectors." "Protectors of what?" Hyun-woo asked. "This entire sector of space. They fought against something that was threatening other species. But whatever they were fighting was so dangerous that they had to make a terrible choice." The ship's main screen activated without being asked, showing them images from its memory. They saw battles against creatures that seemed to be made of living darkness, entities that consumed entire star systems. The Vorthak fleet fought desperately to hold the line while other species evacuated to safety. They sacrificed themselves, so men realized. The Vorthak didn't disappear. They gave up their physical forms to power a barrier that's still protecting this part of the galaxy. "But they left their ships behind," Tae-min added, "waiting for someone who could continue their mission." "Waiting for us," Dong-ho said quietly. Though ship seemed to approve of their understanding. More systems came online, including faster-than-light communications and long-range sensors. Suddenly, Hyun-woo could see the entire sector spread out before him like a three-dimensional map. "There are more ships," he announced. "Dozens of them, scattered across different star systems, all dormant, all waiting." "The Council knows about them," HFY said, monitoring the communication channels. "I'm picking up hegemony fleet movements throughout the sector. They're moving to secure the other Vorthak ships before any more humans can find them." "They're afraid," Tae-min realized. "They're afraid that if humans get access to this technology, we'll become too powerful to control." The proximity alarms started sounding again. Veltar's ship had returned, but this time it wasn't alone. 3 more hegemony vessels had joined it, forming an attack formation outside the scrapyard. "Incoming message," HFY announced. Veltar appeared on the screen again, but this time there was no pretense of diplomacy. "Humans, you have refused our reasonable request. By order of the Hegemony Council, you are commanded to abandon the Vorthak vessel immediately. You have 10 minutes to comply before we open fire." Hyun-woo felt the Kethvar's battle systems fully activate. Weapon ports opened along the hull, and shield generators hummed to life. The ship was ready for war, but it was waiting for his decision. "What are your orders, Captain?" Tae-min asked formally. Hyun-woo looked around at his crew. They had stumbled onto something incredible, something that could change humanity's place in the galaxy forever, but that would only matter if they survived. The next few minutes. "All hands to battle stations," he said. "Let's show them what humans can do when we're properly motivated." The Kethvar responded to his words with what could only be described as excitement. After 50,000 years of waiting, it was finally time to fight again. The 10 minutes passed like hours. Hyunwoo could feel every second ticking by through his connection with the Kethvar. The ship's ancient systems were fully awake now, analyzing the 4 hegemony vessels with the patience of a predator studying its prey. "They're powering up weapons," Taemin reported from the tactical station. "Standard plasma cannons and missile systems. Nothing we can't handle if the ship's defenses work like I think they do." "That's a big if," So-Min muttered, her hands dancing, over the engineering controls. The ship responded to her thoughts, routing power to critical systems with an efficiency that amazed her. "I'm still learning how half of these systems work." "The ship will teach us," Dong-ho said confidently. He was already merged with the navigation system, feeling the Kethvar's eagerness to move, to dance between enemy fire like it had done countless times before. "It wants us to succeed." Jihai was monitoring communications from all over the sector. "More hegemony ships are moving toward the other Vorthak vessels. If we don't make a stand here, they'll claim all of them." "Time's up." Veltar's voice crackled over the communication system. "You have chosen poorly, humans. All ships, open fire." The first volley of plasma bolts lit up space like deadly fireworks. Hyunwoo felt the Kethvar respond before his conscious mind could process the threat. The ship twisted through space with impossible grace, avoiding the worst of the attack while its shields absorbed the rest. "Return fire," Hyunwoo ordered, though the ship was already responding to his intent. The Kethvar's weapons were nothing like the crude plasma cannons of their attackers. Beams of pure energy lanced out with surgical precision, striking the engine ports of the nearest hegemony ship. The enemy vessel spun helplessly as its propulsion failed, but its crew was unharmed. Warning shots, Taemin realized. The ship is giving them a chance to withdraw, but the hegemony forces interpreted mercy as weakness. All 4 ships concentrated their fire on the ancient vessel, filling space with deadly energy. This time, the Kethvar's response was different. Hyunwoo felt the ship's personality shift from patient teacher to protective parent. It would not allow its crew to be threatened. Weapon systems he hadn't even known existed came online, and suddenly, the scrapyard around them became part of the battlefield. The purple cables that had covered the ship's hull weren't just organic growths. They were part of a vast network that connected to other derelict vessels throughout the graveyard. In seconds, dozens of ancient hulks began moving, creating a maze of metal that confused enemy targeting systems. "How is it doing that?" So-Min asked in amazement. "The cables," Jihai said, understanding flooding through her. "They're not just on our ship. They've been slowly spreading through the entire graveyard over thousands of years. The Kethvar has been preparing this battlefield for a very long time. The enemy ships found themselves trapped in a constantly shifting maze of debris. Every time they lined up a shot, another piece of scrap would drift into their targeting solution. Meanwhile, the Kethvar moved through the chaos like it belonged there, striking at will. "We need to end this quickly," Hyunwoo said, "before they call for reinforcements." The ship responded to his urgency by revealing another surprise. The seemingly random pieces of debris weren't random at all. They were components of other Vorthak vessels, ships that had been dormant for so long that they looked like ordinary scrap. But now, with the Kethvar's awakening, they were coming back to life. Weapon systems that had been dark for millennia suddenly powered up. Ancient engines flickered to life just long enough to ram enemy ships or block their escape routes. It wasn't a battle anymore. It was a coordinated dance of destruction orchestrated by technology that was old when humanity was still living in. Caves! Impossible! Veltar's voice cracked over the communication system. Vorthak ships can't operate without living crews. They're not operating alone, Hyunwoo replied, finally understanding what made humans special. They're sharing our minds, our creativity, our stubbornness. You wanted to know what makes us dangerous? We don't know when to quit. The battle ended as suddenly as it had begun. 3 of the hegemony ships were disabled, their crews alive but their vessels dead in space. Veltar's flagship was the only one still capable of movement, and it was already turning to flee. Let him go, Hyunwoo ordered, though the Kethvar was eager to finish what the enemy had started. We've made our point. As the hegemony ship limped away, Hyunwoo felt a change in the ship's mood. The battle-ready tension faded, replaced by something that felt almost like satisfaction. The Kethvar had protected its crew and proven that it was far from helpless. That was incredible, Taemin said, reviewing the tactical data. We just fought off 4 modern warships using a vessel that's older than recorded history. Not just older, Somin corrected. Better. The ship didn't just react to their attacks. It anticipated them, planned counter-moves, used the environment as a weapon. It thought 3 steps ahead of everything they tried. Because it was learning. From us, Dong-ho realized. Human tactical thinking, combined with Vorthak technology. We're not just operating the ship, we're evolving it. Over the next several hours, they began to understand just how much the Kethvar had changed during the battle. The ship's systems were now fully integrated with human methods of problem-solving. It could analyze situations the way humans did, looking for unconventional solutions and creative approaches. Look at this, Ji-hai said, showing them the updated system displays. The ship has modified its own programming. It's incorporated human concepts like improvisation and lateral thinking into its core functions. The weapons systems had evolved too. Taemin discovered that the ship could now create new types of ammunition on demand, combining Vorthak energy, manipulation with human understanding of physics and chemistry. The results were devastating in their precision. We could disable an entire fleet without killing a single crew member, he said in amazement. The ship has learned to value human life, even enemy life. But their celebration was interrupted by an urgent message from New Busan Station. Ji-hai's face went pale as she read the incoming transmission. The Hegemony Council has declared us enemies of galactic peace, she announced. They're mobilizing a full battle fleet to hunt us down. 200 ships, led by 3 different species flagships. 200 ships, Somin said quietly. Even with everything we've learned, we can't fight those odds. Maybe we can't, Hyunwoo agreed. But we're not alone anymore. He was right. The ship's long-range sensors were detecting movement throughout the sector. Other Vorthak vessels were beginning to stir, responding to the Kethvar's awakening like sleeping giants hearing a call to arms. They're not fully active yet, Dong-ho reported, but they're definitely responding to something, maybe to us. The ship is sending out some kind of signal, Ji-Hai added. Not radio or subspace. Something else. Something the other Vorthak ships. Recognize. Hyun-Woo felt it through his connection to the Kethvar. It was calling to its sisters, sharing what it had learned about humanity, about the strange creatures who could think like warriors and care like healers at the same time. We need to find those other ships, he decided, before the hegemony does. If they're going to wake up, they need human crews to guide them. That's assuming other humans can do what we did, Tae-min pointed out. They can, Hyun-Woo said with certainty. The ship isn't bonding with us because we're special. It's bonding with us because we're human. And if there's one thing I've learned about my species, it's that we're all crazy enough to try the impossible. The Kethvar seemed to approve of his confidence. Course plots appeared on the navigation display, showing the locations of 3 more dormant vessels within a day's travel. The hunt for humanity's new fleet was about to begin. The first Vorthak ship they found was buried under a collapsed mining platform on a dead asteroid. From the outside, it looked like nothing more than twisted metal and broken rock. But the Kethvar's sensors could see through the debris to the sleeping vessel beneath. "How long has it been down there?" So-min asked as they studied the readings. "At least 1,000 years, Ji-Hai replied, analyzing the geological data. "Maybe longer. The mining operation that built that platform never knew they were drilling right on top of a warship." Hyun-Woo felt the Kethvar reaching out to its sister ship, sending gentle pulses of energy through the asteroid's rocky shell. Somewhere deep below, something ancient began to stir. The response was weak but unmistakable. "It's alive," Dong-ho said in wonder. "Barely, but it's still there." "We need to get it out," Hyun-Woo decided, but carefully. "If we damage the hull during extraction, we might lose it forever." The process took 8 hours of delicate work. The Kethvar used its tractor beams like surgical instruments, carefully lifting away tons of rock and twisted metal. Tae-min coordinated. The operation from the tactical station, his military training helping him think three-dimensionally about the complex extraction. When they finally cleared away the last of the debris, they revealed a ship that was smaller than the Kethvar but sleeker. Where their vessel was built for raw power, this one was designed for speed and precision. Its hull was a deep blue-black that seemed to absorb light. "It's beautiful," So-min breathed. The moment the new ship was free, 3 things happened at once. First, its systems began powering up automatically, drawing energy from the Kethvar through some invisible connection. Second, a message arrived on all communication channels throughout the sector, broadcast by the Hegemony Council. Third, a small human mining ship appeared on their sensors, approaching fast. "The Council is offering a reward," Ji-Hai reported, reading the message with disgust. 10 million credits for information leading to our capture. 20 million for our actual location. "And someone just claimed it," Dong-ho said, watching the approaching mining vessel. "That ship just transmitted our coordinates to the nearest Hegemony patrol." Hyun-Woo felt the anger of both Vorthak ships like a wave of heat. They did not appreciate being hunted, and they especially did not like the idea of their human partners being sold to the highest bidder. How long before the patrol gets here? He asked. 20 minutes, Taemin replied, already calculating intercept courses. But that's assuming they only send one ship. If they're smart, they'll send everything they have in the area. Then we need to be gone in 15, Hyunwoo decided. Can the new ship move? As if answering his question, the blue-black vessel began to move on its own. Its engines came online with a low hum that seemed to harmonize with the Kethvar's power systems. But instead of flying away, it moved closer to the mining ship that had betrayed them. "What's it doing?" So-min asked. They got their answer when the mining ship's engines suddenly died. The blue vessel had somehow disabled them without firing a shot. Then, to everyone's surprise, it extended a docking tube and locked onto the smaller ship's airlock. It wants to meet them, Hyunwoo realized. The ship is curious about humans who would sell out their own species. Should we stop it? Taemin asked, his hand hovering over the weapon's controls. No, Hyunwoo replied. Let's see what happens. What happened surprised them all. Instead of harming the mining crew, the blue ship simply talked to them. Through the Kethvar's connection, Hyunwoo could sense the conversation taking place. The Vorthak vessel was trying to understand why humans would betray other humans for money. The mining crew consisted of 3 people, an older man named Captain Bae Sung-ho, his daughter Min-jung, and their engineer Won-sik. They had been struggling to make ends meet after their mining claim ran dry. The reward money would have solved all their problems, but as they talked with the ancient ship through its bio-neural interface, their perspective began to change. The vessel showed them what the Hegemony Council really planned to do with captured Vorthak technology. Not study it or preserve it, but destroy it to maintain their control over the galaxy. They're not trying to protect anyone, Min-jung said, her voice carrying over the comm channel. They're just afraid of losing power. When the conversation ended, the blue ship released the mining vessel and returned to formation with the Kethvar. But instead of flying away, the mining ship followed them. Captain Kim, Bae Sung-ho's voice came over the radio. We want to help. We know this sector better than any hegemony patrol. If you're looking for more of these ships, we can guide you to places they'll never think to search. Why? Hyunwoo asked. What changed your mind? Your ship showed us something, Min-jung replied. It shared memories of what the galaxy was like before the hegemony took control, when different species worked together instead of being afraid of each other. We want that future back. The next few days became a deadly game of hide and seek across 3 star systems. The hegemony had deployed Admiral Krickstahl's hunting fleet, 50 ships dedicated to tracking down the rogue humans and their ancient vessels. But Bae Sung-ho knew every asteroid field, every nebula, every place a ship could hide. They found the second Vorthak vessel in a place no one would have thought to look, the middle of a busy shipping lane, disguised as a navigation beacon. It had been there for centuries, helping ships plot safe courses through a dangerous asteroid field. Everyone who used the shipping lane owed their lives to a sleeping Vorthak warship. This ship was different from the others. Where the Kethvar was a brawler and the blue ship was a scout, this one was clearly designed for support operations. It was smaller than both, but its hull bristled with communication arrays and sensor equipment. It's been watching, HFY realized as the ship's systems came online. All these years it's been monitoring galactic communications, learning about every species that passed through here. The ship's awakening brought both good news and bad news. The good news was that it had detailed intelligence on hegemony fleet movements throughout the sector. The bad news was that Admiral Krixtal was closing in on their location with overwhelming force. 47 ships, Taemin reported, studying the tactical data the support ship provided, including 2 heavy cruisers and a dreadnought. They'll be here in 6 hours. We can't fight those odds, Somin said. Even with 3 Vorthak ships, we're outnumbered 15-1. But Hyunwoo was feeling something through his connection to the ships. They weren't afraid of the approaching fleet. If anything, they seemed excited about the challenge. The ships have been talking to each other, he announced. They've been sharing information, coordinating their capabilities. They want to show us something. What they wanted to show was the true power of Vorthak battle doctrine. The 3 ships didn't fight as separate vessels. They fought as one organism with 3 bodies, sharing sensor data, coordinating attacks, and covering each other's weaknesses with perfect timing. When the first wave of hegemony scouts arrived, they found empty space. The Vorthak ships had vanished, using stealth technology that was older than most civilizations. But they weren't hiding. They were hunting. The battle that followed wasn't really a battle at all. It was a lesson in the difference between modern firepower and ancient wisdom. The hegemony ships had superior numbers and newer weapons, but they fought like individuals. The Vorthak vessels fought like a pack of wolves, coordinating every move and turning the enemy's numbers against them. Impossible. Admiral Krixtal's voice crackled over the emergency frequencies. How can 3 ships outmaneuver an entire battle group? Because they're not just 3 ships, Hyunwoo replied, his voice carrying the confidence of someone who had finally found his purpose. They're extensions of human will, backed by 50,000 years of tactical evolution. You're not fighting machines, Admiral. You're fighting the partnership between human creativity and Vorthak perfection. The battle ended with half the hegemony fleet disabled, and the other half in full retreat. But Hyunwoo knew this was just the beginning. Word of their victory would spread, and soon the entire galaxy would know that humans had claimed the Vorthak legacy. The real war was about to begin. The first human ship to answer the Vorthak call came from the mining colonies of the Tau Ceti system. Captain Lee Yun-ji had been hauling asteroid ore for 15 years when the dreams started. Every night she saw visions of a massive ship waiting, in the depths of space, calling her name with a voice like distant thunder. Her crew thought she was losing her mind until the ship's sensors detected something impossible hidden in the Tau Ceti asteroid belt. It was easily twice the size of the Kethvar, its hull dark as night and covered in what looked like massive hangar bays. "It's a carrier," Yunji whispered as her mining ship approached the dormant giant. "A ship designed to launch other ships. The moment." Her boots touched the ancient deck. The carrier began to wake up. But this awakening was different from what Hyunwoo had experienced. Where the Kethvar had been eager and curious, this ship felt patient and wise, like a teacher waiting for students to arrive. "Welcome," the ship seemed to say through the bio-neural link. "I am the Velthara. I have been waiting to show you the stars. Halfway across the galaxy, Commander Park In-soo was having his own encounter with Vorthak technology. His patrol ship had been investigating strange energy readings near a binary star system when they found what looked like a metallic comet. But when they got closer, the comet revealed itself to be a sleek attack ship designed for speed and stealth. "It's beautiful," In-soo's weapons officer breathed as the ship began to unfold like a flower, revealing weapon systems that could probably destroy a small moon. "It's dangerous," In-soo corrected. But he was already feeling the ship calling to him. This vessel wanted a warrior, someone who understood that sometimes violence was the only way to protect the innocent. But sometimes dangerous is exactly what we need. By the end of the week, 7 human crews had successfully bonded with Vorthak vessels. Each ship was different, shaped by both its original purpose and the personality of its new human captain. Some were built for direct combat, others for support and reconnaissance. One was clearly designed for rescue operations, its hull bristling with medical bays and emergency equipment. But as the human fleet grew stronger, so did the hegemony's response. The Nexus engine had reached the edge of the sector, bringing with it the largest military force ever assembled. 200 ships from a dozen different species, all united in their determination to prevent humans from claiming their inheritance. "They're not just trying to stop us," Professor Young-soo observed as he studied the enemy fleet composition from aboard the Kethvar. "They're trying to make an example of us, show the galaxy what happens to species that challenge the established order." The hegemony had learned from their previous defeats. Instead of attacking the human-controlled ships directly, they were targeting human civilian populations. Colony worlds throughout the sector were being blockaded, their supply lines cut, and their communications jammed. "They're trying to force us to surrender by threatening innocent people," Taemin said angrily. "That's not warfare, that's terrorism." "It's effective terrorism," Somin pointed out grimly. "How can we fight them when every shot we fire might result in civilians dying?" But the Vorthak ships had an answer to that problem too. The 7 vessels began sharing information through their quantum network, coordinating their movements with a precision that amazed their human crews. They could be in 7 different systems simultaneously, protecting civilian populations while still maintaining offensive capabilities. "Look at this tactical display," Dong-ho said in amazement. "The ships are planning operations 3 moves ahead. They know where the hegemony fleets will be before the hegemony knows it themselves." The first major engagement came when the hegemony tried to destroy a human colony on Kepler 438b. The colonists were farmers and scientists, completely defenseless against military attack. But when the enemy fleet arrived, they found Captain Yunji's carrier waiting for them. The Velthara had spent the journey to Kepler 438b doing something unprecedented. It had been manufacturing smaller ships in its vast hangar bays, creating a swarm of single-pilot fighters that responded to human thoughts as easily as the larger vessels did. "Impossible," the hegemony fleet commander broadcast as dozens of fighter craft poured out of the carrier's bays. "Those ships are being built in real time. How is that possible?" "Vorthak biotechnology doesn't just repair itself," Yunji replied calmly as her fighters engaged the enemy fleet. It evolves. It adapts. It grows stronger. The battle for Kepler 438b became a legend that spread throughout human space. A single carrier and its swarm of fighters held off an entire hegemony battle group while civilian transports evacuated the colony. When reinforcements arrived in the form of Commander In Su's stealth ship, the enemy was forced to retreat in confusion. But the real surprise came when the evacuated colonists refused to abandon their homes permanently. Instead, they volunteered to crew the fighter craft that the Velthara was still producing. Within days, the carrier had a full complement of human pilots, each one bonded to their own small piece of Vorthak technology. The ships aren't just calling to military crews, Young Su realized. They're calling to anyone with the courage to stand up and fight for what's right. Farmers, teachers, merchants, students. The Vorthak legacy isn't about being professional. Warriors. It's about ordinary people choosing to be extraordinary. This revelation changed everything. Across human space, civilian volunteers began answering the call of dormant Vorthak ships. Not all of them were successful. The ships were selective, choosing only those who truly understood the responsibility they were accepting. But those who were chosen found themselves part of something greater than they had ever imagined. The Hegemony Council watched these developments with growing alarm. Their intelligence reports painted a picture that terrified the established powers of the galaxy. Humans weren't just claiming individual ships. They were creating a fleet that grew stronger with every engagement, learning and adapting faster than any enemy could counter. How many active vessels do they have now? Representative Veltar demanded during an emergency council session. 15 confirmed, came the reply. But our analysts believe there may be twice that number operating in stealth mode, and the rate of activation is accelerating. Then we use the Nexus engine, Veltar decided. Destroy their main fleet before it can grow any larger. But the Hegemony had made a crucial mistake. They assumed that destroying the largest human-controlled ships would break the growing fleet. They didn't understand that the real strength of the Vorthak vessels came from their network connection, their ability to share knowledge and coordinate across impossible distances. When the Nexus engine finally revealed itself, moving to attack the concentration of human ships near New Busan Station, it found itself facing something unprecedented. 7 different Vorthak vessels, each one perfectly positioned to support the others, each one crewed by humans who had learned to think as one mind distributed across multiple bodies. "This is Admiral Krixtal aboard the Nexus engine," came the transmission. "Surrender now, and your crews will be spared. Continue to resist, and we will demonstrate why the Hegemony has maintained galactic peace for 10,000 years." Hyunwoo felt the response of all 7 ships through the quantum network. They were not afraid of the massive weapon bearing down on them. If anything, they seemed eager to show the galaxy what the partnership between human courage and Vorthak technology could really accomplish. "Admiral Krixtal," he replied, his voice carrying the confidence of someone who had found his true purpose. "You're about to learn the difference between maintaining control through fear and earning respect through sacrifice. Let me show you what Guardians really look like." The final battle was about to begin, and the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. The Nexus engine was a monster of metal and malice, stretching for miles across the void like a mechanical cancer. Its surface bristled with weapon batteries that could crack planets and shields that had never been breached in 1,000 years of service. At its heart sat Admiral Crixtall, surrounded by the combined military might of 200 ships from across the galaxy. Final warning, the Admiral's voice echoed across all frequencies. Abandon your vessels and surrender, or face complete annihilation. Hyunwoo sat in the command chair of the Kethvar, feeling the presence of his fellow captains through the quantum network that connected all their ships. Captain Yunji in her massive carrier, Commander In-Soo in his stealth fighter, and 4 others who had answered the ancient call. 7 ships against an armada? But somehow the odds didn't feel impossible. You know what I love about humans? So Min said from her engineering station, her voice carrying through the network to all 7 crews. We're too stupid to know when. We're beaten. It's not stupidity, Professor Young-soo corrected from his position at the science station. It's hope. Humans always believe there's a solution, even when logic says otherwise. The hegemony fleet began its approach in perfect formation, a wall of firepower that should have been overwhelming. But as they drew closer, something strange began to happen. The 7 Vorthak ships didn't spread out to maximize their defensive capabilities. Instead, they moved closer together, almost touching. What are they doing? Admiral Crixtall demanded, watching the human formation on his tactical display. They're making themselves easier targets. His weapons officer, an insectoid creature, with compound eyes that could track dozens of targets simultaneously, studied the readings with growing confusion. Sir, I'm detecting massive energy buildups between their vessels. It's like they're connecting somehow. The truth was more incredible than the hegemony forces could have imagined. The 7 Vorthak ships weren't just sharing information through their quantum network anymore. They were sharing everything. Power, processing capability, even consciousness itself. The boundary between individual vessels began to blur as they became something new. Hyunwoo felt his awareness expand beyond the Kethvar to encompass all 7 ships. He could see through Yunji's sensors, think with In-Soo's tactical computer, feel the pulse of every reactor and the breath of every crew member. It should have been overwhelming, but instead it felt perfectly natural, like finally seeing the universe with both eyes open. Now I understand, he said, his voice carrying to every human in the fleet. The ships weren't just waiting for crews. They were waiting for a species that could become part of something greater than themselves. The first volley from the hegemony fleet lit up space like a miniature star going nova. Hundreds of plasma bolts and energy beams converged on the human formation with enough power to vaporize a small moon. But when the light faded, all 7 ships were not only intact, but glowing with absorbed energy. Impossible, Admiral Crixtall breathed. Nothing can absorb that much firepower. 1 ship. Can't, Hyunwoo replied through the communication channels. But 7 ships working as one? That's a different story. What followed wasn't a battle in any traditional sense. It was a demonstration of what happened when human creativity merged with technology that had been perfected over 50,000 years of evolution. The 7 ships moved like dancers, each one anticipating the other's movements with perfect precision. They didn't try to match the enemy's firepower. Instead, they turned the hegemony's own strength against them. Energy attacks were absorbed and redirected. Missile swarms were confused by false targets and lured into friendly fire incidents. The massive formation that should have been the fleet's greatest strength became a liability as ships found themselves unable to fire without hitting their allies. "This is madness," one of the hegemony captains transmitted. "How can 7 ships outmaneuver 200? Because we're not fighting 7 ships. Admiral Krixtal realized with growing horror. We're fighting one mind with 7 bodies. They're coordinating at the speed of thought. But the human fleet's greatest advantage wasn't their coordination. It was their restraint. Every shot they fired was calculated to disable rather than destroy. Every maneuver was designed to minimize casualties. They were demonstrating the difference between warriors who fought for conquest and guardians who fought for protection. "Look at the casualty reports," Taemin called out, his voice filled with amazement. "They're disabling enemy ships left and right, but actual deaths are minimal. The Vorthak weapons are designed to target systems, not crew. That's what makes us different from the original Vorthak," Young-Soo explained through the network. "They were great warriors, but they fought to win. Humans fight to protect. The ships have learned that from us. The tide of battle turned when the Nexus engine itself entered the fight. The massive station opened fire with weapons that could have sterilized entire worlds, but the human fleet was ready for it. The 7 ships had been analyzing the station's weaknesses throughout the battle, sharing information and planning the perfect counter-strike. What they discovered was that the Nexus engine's greatest strength was also its greatest weakness. All. That power had to be controlled by a single command system, and that system was vulnerable to the kind of subtle infiltration that Vorthak biotechnology excelled at. "We're going to hack a space station?" Dong-Ho asked incredulously. "Not hack," Ji-Hai corrected. "Convince. The Nexus engine's control systems are semi-organic. They can be reasoned with if you know how to speak their language." The infiltration took less than 5 minutes. Vorthak bioneural interfaces, guided by human intuition and creativity, slipped past defenses that had been designed to stop conventional attacks. They didn't try to destroy the station's systems. Instead, they talked to them, showing them what the universe could be like if different species worked together instead of fighting for dominance. The result was spectacular. The Nexus engine's weapons powered down, its shields dropped, and its communication systems began broadcasting something unprecedented, a message of peace to every ship in the fleet. "This is the Nexus engine control system," came the transmission in a voice that sounded almost human. "After reviewing the tactical data from this engagement, I have concluded that the Human Vorthak Alliance poses no threat to galactic security. In fact, they represent the best hope for long-term peace and prosperity." Admiral Krixtal's response was predictable. "Computer malfunction. All ships ignore the station's transmissions and continue the attack." But his crews had seen enough. They had watched 7 human ships defeat 200 without killing a single enemy crew member. They had seen the station's own systems declare the humans peaceful. Most importantly, they had seen a different vision of what the galaxy could become. One by one, hegemony ships began powering down their weapons and requesting permission to withdraw. The battle was over not because one side had been destroyed, but because one side had been convinced. In the aftermath, as rescue ships moved to assist the disabled vessels and medical teams treated the wounded, Hyun-woo sat in the command chair of the Kethvar and marveled at what they had accomplished. The ship around him hummed with satisfaction, its ancient systems finally fulfilling the purpose for which they had been created. It was never about the technology, he said to his crew, and through the network to all the humans who had answered the Vorthak call. The ships, the weapons, the advanced systems, they were just tools. What made the difference was us. Human stubbornness, human creativity, human refusal to give up when things look impossible. So Min smiled from her engineering station. So what happens now? Do we become the new galactic government? No, Hyun-woo replied firmly. We become what the Vorthak always wanted us to be. Guardians, protectors, the ones who stand between the darkness and the light, not to rule, but to serve. Across the galaxy, more Vorthak ships were awakening as humans answered their call. Not all humans, the ships were selective, choosing only those who understood that true strength came from protecting others rather than conquering them. But enough humans to make a difference. The Hegemony Council would have to learn to share power, to work with humans as equals rather than trying to control them as subjects. It wouldn't be easy, and there would be more conflicts ahead. But for the first time in 10,000 years, the galaxy had guardians again. And in the depths of space, where the ancient barrier held back the hungry darkness between galaxies, something stirred and took notice. The watch was changing, but the vigil would continue. The rusty ship had become something incredible. But then again, it had never been just a ship. It had been hope waiting patiently for someone worthy to find it. Captain Hyun-woo Kim stood on the bridge of the Terran research vessel Defiance, watching the enemy fleet grow larger on his screens. 10,000 alien warships moved toward them like a dark cloud blocking out the stars. Each ship was twice the size of his vessel, and their weapons could turn planets into dust. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of computers and the steady breathing of his crew. Everyone knew what those ships meant. The Velkari Empire had come to finish what they started 3 years ago. They had come to destroy the last humans in space. Hyun-woo looked at his crew. These men and women had been with him through hell and back. They had watched their friends die, their cities burn, and their people scattered across the galaxy. Now they were all that remained of humanity's once great space fleet. "Captain," said Chief Engineer Bo-Ram Park from her station. Her voice was calm, but Hyun-woo could see the worry in her dark eyes. "The quantum drive is barely holding together. We used too much power in the last battle. If we push it hard, we might get one more jump, but that's it." Hyun-woo nodded. He had expected this news. The Defiance had been running and fighting for months without proper repairs, Every system on the ship was held together with spare parts and hope. "What about weapons?" he asked. Weapons Officer Tae-min Lee turned from his console. The young man's face was grim. "We have enough missiles for maybe one real fight, Captain. After that, we'll be down to the energy cannons, and those won't do much against ships that size." The alien fleet was close enough now that Hyun-woo could see the details of their ships. The Valkyrie built their vessels like floating fortresses, all sharp angles and heavy armor. They looked exactly like what they were, tools of conquest built by a race that had never known defeat. For 3 years, the Valkyrie Empire had swept across human space like a plague. They destroyed everything in their path, taking no prisoners and showing no mercy. World after world fell to their massive fleets. The human military, for all its courage and technology, had been crushed under the weight of superior numbers. Hyun-woo remembered the last message from Earth. The planet was surrounded, its defenses failing. The government had sent out one final order to all remaining ships: survive. Keep humanity alive among the stars, even if the homeworld fell. That had been 6 months ago. Since then, Hyun-woo had heard nothing from Earth or any other human world. For all he knew, the 847 people on his ship were the last humans in the universe. "Captain," Communications Officer So Young-nam called out, "we're getting a transmission from the enemy fleet. They want to talk." The main screen flickered and showed the face of an alien commander. The Valkyrie looked like a cross between a lizard and a bird, with scales that shifted color and eyes like black glass. When it spoke, the ship's computer translated its words into human language. "Human vessel," the alien said, its voice harsh and mechanical through the translator. "I am Admiral Tekvar of the Valkyrie Imperial Fleet. You are surrounded and outnumbered. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick." Hyun-woo stepped forward so the alien could see him clearly. He was not a tall man, but he carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who had faced death many times and lived to tell about it. "Admiral," Hyun-woo said, his voice steady, "I am Captain Hyun-woo Kim of the Terran vessel Defiance. I have a message for you and your Emperor." The alien's head tilted slightly, showing what might have been curiosity. "Your empire has destroyed our worlds and killed our people," Hyun-woo continued. "You think that makes you strong, but you've never faced humans who have nothing left to lose. You want this ship? Come and take it." Admiral Tekvar's scales shifted to a darker color, which the ship's database said meant anger. "Foolish human, you have one ship against 10,000. Your death will serve as an example to any who dare resist the Empire." "Maybe," Hyun-woo said, "but before we die, we're going to show the galaxy something they've never seen before. We're going to show them that the mighty Valkyrie Empire can bleed." The alien cut the transmission, and the screen went dark. Hyun-woo turned to his crew. Every face was looking at him, waiting for orders. These people had followed him through impossible battles and desperate escapes. They trusted him to lead them, even now when there seemed to be no hope left. "All right, people," he said. "We all knew this day would come. The enemy thinks they know how this fight will end. They think we'll run or surrender like every other species they've conquered, but they don't understand humans. They don't understand that we get more dangerous when we're cornered. He walked to the center of the bridge, looking at each of his officers in turn. Boram, I need everything you can give me from the engines. I don't care if they explode after this fight as long as they work during it. The chief engineer smiled grimly. You'll have full power, Captain. I promise. Taemin, forget about saving ammunition. Use everything we have. Make every shot count. The weapons officer nodded. They'll remember this fight, sir. So Young, open a channel to the entire ship. Let everyone know what we're about to do. Hyun-woo took a deep breath as the communications officer opened the ship-wide channel. When he spoke, his voice carried to every corner of the Defiance. Crew of the Defiance, this is your captain. In a few minutes, we're going to fight the largest battle in human history. We're outnumbered 10,000 to 1. The enemy thinks that means they've already won. They're wrong. He paused, gathering his thoughts. For 3 years, we've watched our people die and our worlds burn. We've run from superior forces and hidden in the dark corners of space. But today, we stop running. Today, we make our stand, not because we think we can win, but because some things are worth dying for. The ship was completely silent now. Even the computer sounds seemed muted. The enemy has ships and weapons and numbers, but they don't have what we have. They don't have the courage to fight when the odds are impossible. They don't have the cleverness to turn weakness into strength. And they don't have the human spirit that refuses to break, no matter what. Hyun-woo's voice grew stronger. We are the last free humans in the galaxy. We carry the memory of every world that has fallen, every life that has been lost. Today we fight not just for ourselves, but for everyone who can't fight anymore. Today we show the universe that humanity does not go quietly into the dark. He nodded to So Young, who closed the channel. The enemy fleet was moving into attack. Formation now. The alien ship spread out like the fingers of a giant hand, ready to crush the tiny human vessel between them. Their weapons began to charge, creating an eerie glow that lit up the darkness of space. All stations, report ready, Hyun-woo ordered. One by one, his officers confirmed their readiness. The ship's weapons were armed and targeted. The engines were running at maximum power. The crew was at battle stations. Hyun-woo sat down in his captain's chair and gripped the armrests. In a few seconds, the first shots would be fired. In a few minutes, the battle would be over. But right now, in this moment before the storm, he felt something he hadn't felt in months. He felt proud. Take us in, he ordered. The Defiance turned toward the enemy fleet and began to accelerate. Behind them was empty space and the memory of dead worlds. Ahead was an empire that had never known defeat. Between them was a single human ship, flying straight into the teeth of destruction with its weapons blazing. The last battle for humanity had begun,